Week 1 in the books. Broncos get the win. Some good, some bad, some ugly. But hey, even some beauty in there as well from the defense and from the running game late. So there's some things to like and some things that have to be better by next week. We'll talk about it all on this edition of Denver Football After Dark. Crack one open with me here. Late on a Sunday night into Monday morning. $20-12. Not a scoregami. I had 27-9, so I was close on the total number of points. Not really close on the score. I was close on the Titans, though. I said 9, they had 12. Close 9. I guess I didn't have them scoring a touchdown, so I was kind of right on that. But yeah, there's so much to talk about from that one. Definitely an interesting game, no doubt about it. So the Broncos get the dub. Tied for first place in the AFC West with the Chargers and the Las Vegas Raiders. Kansas City all alone in last place. I'm sure that's going to make a lot of you in Broncos country feel pretty good. But enough about the Chiefs. Let's talk about your Denver Broncos here. Turn down the music. And let's turn up this conversation here. 20-12 Denver Broncos in week 1. Certainly, I hate using ugly. It's such a cliche. Inelegant, inconsistent, bulky, at times as reliable as a Land Rover was the Denver offense. I'm curious to see what Bo Nix thinks when he's asked Wednesday what he took from watching the film, because there are going to be some things he sees that he doesn't like, I would quite imagine. There were some things that are going to need to be cleaned up. I put the stat out there during the game after his second interception that he went through that period last year where he had only 2 interceptions over that stretch from week 3 to week 12, the Tampa Bay game through the Las Vegas game. And then from that point on, starting with the Cleveland game at home, so that's 5 games down the stretch, and then the Buffalo game, and then this one. So over the last 7 games, he's had 3 games with at least 2 interceptions, including this one. So he's in a little bit of a statistical spot of bother here in terms of giveaways, and had a lost fumble there, of course, as well. He said what he talked about is he's got to put 2 hands on the ball. Only had 1, kind of spun into it. It was play. Ben Powers was beaten by Jeffrey Simmons, and then all heck breaks loose. So it was at times tough. It's fair to wonder how many teams this week the Broncos would have beaten. That they were probably lucky to face a team like the Titans with a rookie quarterback who, I think, as expected, looked very much like a rookie quarterback against this defense, which was as advertised. Did not disappoint. Pressure pouring in from all sides. The great performance from the edges, as expected. The 2 reserves, D'Andrea Tillman and Jonah Ellis, were impactful when they came in. Jonah with a sack, D'Andrea nearly with a sack, setting up Zach Allen for a sack. This is what you're looking for, those guys with fresher legs coming in and being as effective as Jonathan Cooper and Nick Bonito, it means that you're going to be able to give Bonito and Cooper some breathers because those guys can step in and produce as well. Talanoa Hufanga looking really like the guy that he was before he tore his ACL a couple of years ago. And we saw days like this in training camp from him as well. There were a couple of practices in particular where it's like, okay, that's the guy I saw 2 years ago. Before he tore his ACL, I mean, you could make a case that he was in the DPOY conversation. That's how well he was playing. So he looked like that guy again. And if you're talking about having a secondary that has Surtain and Hufanga playing at this level, my word. So Justin Sternad, tip the cap to him because that was as good as we've ever seen him play. Incredibly impactful out there today. Like very much an unsung hero out there for the defense. Just marvelous work on that side of the ball. On the offense, it took a while. There were some moments at the end. I put it out there on social media not too long ago. I spent a little time in the last hour rewatching RJ Harvey's run. Probably watched it, I'd say, about 15 times in a row. And RJ makes a great play. It's a nice cutback. But what I'm in love with is all the work that goes into it. Watching Ben Powers come over and along with Mike McGlinchey seal the right side, and then seeing Garrett Bowles and Luke Wattenberg make the seal to the left, and then you've got Quinn Miners and Adam Troutman out front, and then you've got Cortland Sutton coming in. So you've got the seal. I'm going like Vince Lombardi here. I got the seal here and the seal here. And then RJ goes to the alley, and because you got Troutman and Miners just basically clearing the path, they've created this space for RJ to make the cutback, along with Cortland getting out front as well. And then it's one free guy that RJ's got to beat. And once he beats that guy, it's off to the races. And the result is the longest run for a Denver Broncos since Latavius Murray back in Carolina in 2022. So it's been a minute. I mean, that was the game. That was the Mike Purcell yelling at Russell Wilson game. So, yeah, it's been a minute. It was some bad times back then. But good times now. Good times in Broncos country. 20-12. Hey, winning ugly is winning. So I don't want to, I'm sure I saw somebody in the comment section of my shorter video that's on Twitter and on the Denver Sports Facebook, on the Denver Sports Twitter, and also on this YouTube channel. People, so I'm saying I feel bad after a loss. Don't feel bad after a loss for your Broncos or feeling like a loss. I'm like, don't feel bad after a win if you're a Broncos fan. Like, a win is a win. Understand that you have to view it in the proper context, that there are a lot of things that need to get better. And if the performance next week is like the performance this week across the board, you're probably walking out of Lucas Oil Stadium with an L, because the Colts are a better team than the Titans. The Colts are a team that last year was a Jonathan Taylor drop away from beating the Broncos in all likelihood. Zach Allen has pointed to that play as turning the momentum of the game and saying, if not for that, Broncos almost certainly would have lost the game. I think we all remember how that game was flowing at that point. And that was one of the games, by the way, where Bo Nix had multiple interceptions like he did on Sunday. So the Colts have been pointing to this one for a while. They've been looking at this game and saying, that's last year, that's the one we gave away. That's the one that cost us the playoffs. So the Colts, they're last year basically you could argue one mistake away from being in the postseason because they would have won the tiebreaker over everybody. That was the thing. If the Colts had been 9-8, they won the tiebreaker over everybody. They win over the Broncos, they're in the playoffs. The year before, they had home game, winning in the postseason in Week 18, and they lost. Their issues come down to quarterback play. Gardner Minshew, too many mistakes, because we all know what kind of player Minshew is. He plays on the edge. Last year, Anthony Richardson trying to figure things out with him. Well, y'all saw the game here in December. I think with just average quarterback play, things would have gone differently for the Colts. But Anthony Richardson had a poor day. Well, now you've got Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones is not a great quarterback. But the last time we saw Daniel Jones play a full season, it ended in the divisional round. So Daniel Jones can play competent quarterback. The Colts may only need competent quarterback play with the roster they have. So we'll get into that over the course of the week. But suffice it to say, if the Broncos don't fix some of the glitches they had in this game, they'll be 1-1 when we talk about this next Sunday night. So anyway, Denver football after dark. Anyway, the province of Mace, the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good, the play of the Broncos defense and Jeremy Crawshaw. The bad, the play of the offensive line, the turnovers. You know what? I'm actually going to push back on the offensive line because I thought by the end of the game, the offensive line was playing much better, especially in run blocking. By that point, if you look at the blocking on J.K. Dobbins' touchdown run, look at the blocking on R.J. Harvey's 50-yard run, there are moments where this is how it's supposed to look. Pass pro, some moments where it definitely needs work. Run blocking, you started seeing some things come together. So there are some things up front about which I was actually encouraged as I watched this game. So I'm not going to overreact to a lot of the bad. There were some things I actually liked up front, particularly as you got in the fourth quarter. But you're going to have to clean up some things in pass pro, and you're going to have to clean up some things earlier. I think Mike McGlinchey said it best. You've got to earn the right to run the ball. It's not just turnovers. He said you got to get things done on first down early in the game. And that's one area where the Broncos have to get better. They've got to stay on schedule. Too often they're falling behind schedule. That's still a problem for this offense, is getting behind schedule. That's something they've got to fix. So, Pro 16K. Only pray that our offense will catch up to our defense. Imagine if our offense was like Baltimore and Buffalo's and we could talk Super Bowl. Yeah. I'll say this, and, the old cliche, the truth isn't designed to make you feel good. My personal observation from watching the Chargers, specifically watching the Chargers, the Bills, and the Ravens, and at least I wasn't watching all of the Bills and Ravens tonight because I was working on my article that'll be up shortly at denversports.com after this show, working on the video that, of course, you can see elsewhere, the 8-minute stand-up that I have. There's a gap between the Broncos and the top of the AFC. Baltimore, Buffalo, and I'd say the Chargers have probably gone up here too. They're here, and the Broncos are here. The Broncos aren't down here. They're here. They're in the wild card range right now. They're in that second tier. So, I've had them an 11-6 wild card team since May. I'm not moving off that. I'm sticking with that. With this defense, that's sort of right now where this team feels like to me. This D is fantastic. And I think we're going to see this running game continue to round into form. But they're going to have to get more consistent in the passing game. Bo Nix he's going to have to learn some things from this game and learn some things from the past several games as well. And I think you actually can kind of go back to starting in that game in Las Vegas last November And that was a game where the Raiders were the team that first started to take away a lot of things that were really working for this passing game in terms of rhythm and timing between the numbers, short to intermediate, and started to force things a bit more long and outside. And that in that game, that's where the Raiders started to discombobulate things a bit. And ever since then, there's been some big plays, but there's been less consistency. There was some consistency working for the pass game as you got into like the Falcons game, for example, and even the Chiefs game, the Chiefs and Falcons game. I thought like those two games last year in November was where it wasn't hugely dynamic, but you were seeing consistently. Of course, remember how efficient Bo Nix was in that Falcons game. What was that? That's my phone is telling me to get to sleep, but I'm not going to sleep. So anyway, yeah, get the excitement up. Offense, we're work in progress. Yeah, they probably lose this game. You're right. You're right, PG. They probably lose this game. Yeah. 40 pass attempts to achieve 176 yards. Yeah. That sometimes numbers do deceive. Those numbers, touchdown Bo Nix, those are accurate. Those reflect what we saw. The whole thing, the story I told once about Pat Bowlen walking into Jim Sacamano's office and saying, hey, I feel pretty down, and I know you've got a number to explain why. If you feel pretty down about the passing game, right there, that number, that explains it. Right there. Even before we get to the interception. So. But let's feel good about RJ. Let's feel good about JK getting going at the end. Let's feel good about RJ. Let's feel good. It popped. Like, again, sometimes with this wide zone, you got to wait for it a little bit. Jab, 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 not really much. And then third, fourth quarter, haymaker. That's how it can work. You got to be, but it takes patience. And like Mike McGlinchey said, you got to earn the right. Sternad much better playing with Singleton over Barton. I thought that was a good point. That was something I know I mentioned. I do this show and I do the show with Cecil Lammy. I know I mentioned that at one point that I thought playing next to Alex would help him. I think also this D line being even better than it was last year, I think that helped him well as well. Having Riley Moss back to full health, having the secondary look better, I think that helps Sternad as well. So a good supporting cast that I think you can trust, and then you just say, okay, I got to do my job. If I know the other 10 guys are doing their job, I don't have to worry about it. I think even though PJ Locke was struggling, of course, with the injury that resulted in spinal fusion surgery, I think one thing with PJ last year that was a struggle is sometimes he was trying to cover for other people and was not strictly focused on doing his job. I think Justin today did his job, didn't have to cover for anybody else, and you saw the result, which was maybe the best game he's had as a Denver Bronco. And that actually gives you some reassurance. And now maybe you can be a bit patient with Dre Greenlaw and get him right, get him fully right, because if Sternad looks like that playing next to Alex Singleton, you don't have to rush Dre back. That, I think, is a source of comfort here, perhaps, that you can be patient with Dre if that's the Justin Sternad that we're going to see on the field for the next few weeks. That should feel pretty good. Team has got to invest a high draft pick at tight end. Kenyon Sadiq, baby. That's my guy. That's the guy I'm going to keep talking about out of Oregon. Bo knows him. He was there. He was there when Bo was there. It was the one thing that the one item on the shopping list heading into the draft that they weren't able to cross off that I know they wanted to. You know, you can't always get everything in the draft. And when Jahdae Barron fell, I think you have an outline of a plan in the draft. And at 20, you can't really have a firm plan because you have to react to how the board falls. Barron falling to 20 was a gift from the gods that you had to take advantage of. But it certainly alters your plan a bit. And I know Sean Payton sort of talks about must-haves, needs, and wants. Running back was a must-have out of this draft. Once you took care of getting Evan Engram in free agency, tight end was no longer a must-have. It slipped down a little bit. If you hadn't gotten Engram, if you'd missed on him, if Evan Engram had gone to the Chargers and you'd settled for another tight end, tight end probably would have been a must-have, and then your move at 20 might have been different. You might have had, or maybe your move might have been to move up, perhaps, for the guy that you're going to see next week in Indianapolis. But again, you know, the must-haves, the needs, the wants. Tight end wasn't a must-have once you got Engram. But now, by the way, now he's dealing with a calf injury. That's what he had today. So we don't know the severity of it just yet. It's one of those things we'll probably learn about here in the next few days. But why does Sean insist on abandoning the run so early? So it's funny because, like, if you listen to the players talk, the thing they'll tell you is they're not getting enough on first down to stick with it, A, and B, they're not getting enough on drives to stick with it because of turnovers. That is what they were kind of blaming for not sticking with the run. But I also would say this, like, you look at the first drive, for example, their first down plays, by the way, on the first drive, pass to Kroll for 6, Dobbins run for 3, pass to Troutman for 5, then after delay of game, 1st and 15. So, like, they only had 3 first and 10 plays, and they ran once, passed twice. So it's not really like, it wasn't really out of kilter. But the interesting thing is that in all of those plays, they were on schedule, and yet on second down in those cases, they passed every time. So there were opportunities to run on those second downs, on those first 3 second downs, because they weren't off schedule and they passed. So, there were chances there, but they chose not to take them. Now, when they get the delay of game coming, by the way, a delay of game coming off of a penalty that had given them first down because the Titans had the neutral zone infraction, and then they got the penalty. That's bad. You can't have that. A delay of game after a dead ball, not good. Not great, Bob. And then it just kind of fell apart. There was you had in the midst of that, you had the drop. I mean, it just sort of, devolved from there. Then you get to the next drive, okay? First down run, RJ for 8. Nice, okay? Second down pass. By the way, this is getting to a theme here, right? Next first down, short dump off to it's RJ and a loss of a yard. That play was kind of, unwieldy. But that means you got 2nd and 11, so you're behind schedule, you're off schedule, and that's a pass for 5 yards. And then you move the sticks. Good for you. Then a run, first down run, 2 yards. Not what you want. You're off schedule. A couple of plays later, you get the pick. Or one play later, you have a penalty. Because you have Ben Powers, gets called for holding, and then you're off schedule, and then you have the pick. So it's interesting as we sort of dive into this here. And then you're talking about first down pass on the next series. You go 3 and out. Next series, first down pass to Ingram. Then second down run. Hosanna, at last you do that. And then, oh man, it's just... It's not as bad when you start really looking at it, but you just don't... Then you fast forward to the fourth quarter, and then that's when it starts to look the way it should in terms of establishing the run. But part of that is also you've got an opponent on the run, you've got an opponent worn down. Again, that's sort of how it's supposed to look when you've got wide zone principles. The beauty of this is you can really fatigue an opponent, and that's when it usually succeeds. Need McLaughlin spark out of the backfield. I will admit, there was when there were moments like when Bidet dropped the pass, we saw, some of us in the press box sort of said, I don't know if Jaleel would have dropped that, because we're kind of Weisenheimers up there watching the game. We all have we have our little running commentary as it goes on. So anyway. Bo did well against zone last year. Looked lost today. Lots of wide open. Yeah, wasn't good. Thought it was Ingram's knee. I'm just relaying what we were told. Like the announcement in the press box was calf. So that's what we were. That is what they are announcing it to us as. That's what that was the official announcement. So. How concerning is it? I mean, here's the thing. Broncos signed 4 players this offseason as free agents. They're big 4 free agents. And all of them had recent injuries. Ingram didn't have an injury history, but he did miss nearly half the season last year. He was on injured reserve 2 separate times. And we are talking about now 2 of them dealing with injuries. One has already missed a game, Dre Greenlaw, and now Evan Ingram's dealing with a calf issue. And we are 1 week into the season. So, it is what it is. You've rolled the dice. You've said you believe in your methodology. That's Sean Payton has said that over and over. Sorry, nose itch. Sean Payton believes in his methodology and what they're doing. The Broncos have been the least injured team 2 years in a row. But you are putting this to the ultimate test here. So we're going to find out. We are fixing to find out. So, anyway, I want to play a comment here from an answer to a question that I asked. I asked Mike McGlinchey, and this is sort of kind of in line with what I've been saying just about, he made this point a couple of times about the ground game, the turnovers. I mean, he was probably the most critical of the players that to whom I was privy in the locker room, the most critical of what went on today. He, and stands to reason. He was up front. He did, definitely happy with the win, no doubt. You're never unhappy when you win, but clearly knows that they got to do better.
I just didn't think we got enough of a rhythm offensively in the first half to commit to running the football, to be able to impose our will on that team. We turned the ball over far too much. We didn't allow drives to even get started by not converting first downs, and 4 turnovers is egregious, and that has to stop. And when you turn the ball over 4 times, you don't get the privilege of running the football like that, because you're not staying on the field. And so it's a full team effort. We got to be able to be better there. Thank God we have the defense that we do, and we'll get it cleaned up for next week.
One thing I've heard over and over from players when they talk about the running game is how it's a full team thing. And the thing about running the ball properly is it requires a full team effort. Like, and here's the thing. It requires the defense keeping an opponent from getting away from you. That's what I mean. Like, if your D is bad and they're letting an opponent score 30, 32 points a game, you're not going to be able to establish the run because you're going to be playing from behind. So the Broncos have that. Check that off the list, right? You need a passing game that is enough of a threat to prevent teams from stacking the box. So you can clear out the box and have room to operate. So the safeties don't cheat up. So that is an area of concern right now. Now, we did see the passing game did improve last year down the stretch. I mean, certainly, like if you look at the Cincinnati game, for example, you can see some dynamic moments there. You look at the touchdown to Troy Franklin in the playoff game. I mean, there are flashes, no doubt. I mentioned the Falcon game last year earlier and how efficient the passing game was then. So, I mean, we've seen the bursts. So, it's there. It needs to be more consistent, though, to provide the support necessary. And then, of course, you can't turn the ball over. And that's another element of the passing game because you have a strip sack fumble and 2 interceptions. So the passing element of the offense is responsible for 3 giveaways. And so it takes the team to be able to run the ball. The D held up its end of the bargain by keeping the Titans offense in check and keeping them down and keeping the game close to where you still had an opportunity to establish the run because you weren't behind or behind by much. Like if you're still within a score, for example, you can run the ball. You're still in touch with an opponent. You don't have to, you're not forced into imbalance, right? But when you're giving away the football, and that's special teams as well, because it's a full team thing. Because, I mean, Marvin Mims Jr. extraordinarily reliable, and by the way, that's the moment when Mims muffed the punt. That's when, honestly, I started to worry for this team, because when the reliable elements are getting away from it, I mean, Bo Nix is a young quarterback. Sometimes there are going to be games and days like this. You know, Mama said there'd be days like these, right? Marvin Mims Jr. is an all-pro, and he had some terrific returns today. I mean, if not for the muff punt, we're talking about Marvin Mims Jr. having a terrific day, at least on the special teams side of things. That doesn't happen. Like, that's not something you're counting on. So when that went wrong, that's when I thought, oh man, like this team is actually in trouble here, because the things on which you depend are failing. But then the D said, not on our watch. That moment, by the way, when you had the sacks that pushed the Titans out of field goal range, that reminded me that was the moment where it felt like 2015. And I look, I mean, I'm not saying this is going to be like the 2015 season. I want to make that clear. But that did feel like the 2015 defense. And specifically, that moment felt like the Cleveland game. You remember overtime when there was a giveaway and the Browns, they were in field goal range. Like, all they have to do is not lose yardage, and they kick the field goal and they win. And that D, the pass rush, basically says, not on our watch. Sends the Browns backwards, forces them to punt. And that's a badass attitude, right? Like, we are, not here. Not now. Not as long as we have anything to say about it. And that's what this Broncos defense did. It's an attitude thing. It goes beyond anything in terms of scheme and analytics and anything we can quantify. It's just right frickin' here. That's, as they say, it's got this defense has got the dog in it. And it showed right then and there. We saw it. That is a moment I wanted. Before I started saying, okay, this D could be like the 2015 D, I needed to see something like that. Well, in that moment, I saw it. So now I can say, all right, maybe this group has a chance to be talked about in the same breath as that 2015 defense because they have the same type of attitude and the same type of ability to dig down and say, we are, doesn't matter what else is going on. The other two phases may be doing diddly poo. I'm sure they'll say something stronger, but I'm trying to keep this, keep this relatively clean. So I'm not going to say the 7 dirty words. And it's like, yeah, not now. We are not letting this happen. Not today. Not now. That felt good. I mean, that felt good to see. I'm sure it made y'all feel great. But I like seeing that. The chat's like, but the chat's going crazy. Man alive. Oh, goodness gracious. What is going on? I'm just, holy cow. Whew. Man. Y'all doing okay over there? What's in the box? The mystery box. I mean, it could be a boat. You know how I always wanted a boat. Oh my gosh. Here we go. What's your excuse for a boat? Oh, come on, man. There we go. Yep. That's the troll. Yep. Yep, there we go. There we go. Good for you. It's one game, okay? It's one game. Let's sit back. Like, I like Sean Payton's answer, by the way, when he's like, we're not gonna do this like thing of week to week, progress reports and all that. I mean, even last year, we took the season and at least said we're going to do this in quarters here. No more than that. We're not going to do the week to week up and down status report because that's just stupid. You're gonna drive yourself bonkers. And now that we're a year in, you shouldn't even do it by quarters. You got to step back. He's got a season into his career. It was a pretty good rookie season. So now he's an established starter, okay? So you kind of you step back and let things play out. He's the quarterback. There are going to be ups and there are going to be downs. There are going to be good games and bad games. You hope there are more good ones than shaky ones. That he learns from the bad ones. Okay? Like, just frickin' chill. My goodness. I'm not talking about most of you watching the show. Those are the people, you know who you are. I'm talking, yeah. Let's let this play out here. He had one bad game. If he has a bunch of bad games, then you figure it out. He had a good season, He had a good season last year. He's not a sure thing. We'll see what happens, okay? Just freaking chill. I mean, don't make me kick you out. If you use the term glazed again, I will kick you out because of what that implies. I'll say that right now. You know who you are. Why shouldn't people be optimistic after a rookie season where a quarterback went to the playoffs and played pretty well for the most part? Why shouldn't you be? Are we supposed to be freaking down? Are we supposed to say this guy's going to stink after a season that was better, objectively better than most rookie quarterbacks? What the freaking hell do you expect? Sorry. Yeah, I am about to be 75. Yeah. I'm going to start kicking some people out here. And he constantly changes the personnel from play to play. That's part of it is keeping players fresh. Part of it is trying to keep the defense off guard. That's been one of the things that he likes to do. It's the thing that he's always done. And he had a lot of success with it in New Orleans. Now he had a lot of success with it with Drew Brees. One thing, and it's fair to say, he has not had a top 10 offense since 2019. So that's the last season with Drew Brees. Now, Brees missed part of that season, of course, and Taysom Hill was the quarterback for a bunch of games, including the one here in Denver, the infamous Kendall Hinton game. And then the year that started with Jameis Winston, and then he tore his ACL, and then it was Trevor Siemian and a little bit of Taysom Hill and Ian Book, and it was just a disaster. And then, of course, the Russell Wilson year and the first Bo Nix year. So he's had now 4 consecutive seasons of a non-top 10 offense. So one of the reasons I think you're seeing wide zone is that's a change that he's putting in to try to hopefully alter things. But I do wonder if maybe the substitutions are something that he's going to revisit at some point, because sometimes, and maybe that's like you saw the delay of game to which I referred, is that something that affects the flow of the offense, especially with a quarterback he's in start number 19. Certainly last year, that was an issue. I thought that was an issue that led to some of the bulkiness, especially in the first half of the season, was not only the play call coming in and Bo having to kind of think about that and relay it, but you also had the subs coming in. I think there were too many moving parts at first. So that was something that maybe I think could have been done a little bit differently to ease things on the quarterback. But the thing, I think also Sean Payton he wants to have the perfect personnel for what he wants on that play. And I think that's kind of part of his thing. Like, okay, well, I want this specific receiver, this specific player. I want this guy to be blocking here. Okay, maybe I want Trent Sherfield here to block on this play, that sort of thing. He likes using all the tools at his disposal. So, yeah, you wouldn't like him when he's angry. Oh, man. Yep. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry. I may start using that GIF every show. And like I said, that's a GIF I can hear. By the way, I actually bumped into when I was doing my walkabout today, had a really nice conversation with a fan who said he watches the shows and all that, and he mentioned that he got my references because he was in the same generation as I was, and I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool. I really appreciated that. So, Crawshaw looked good. Hey, there's something that I felt good about for him after having a little bit of a beleaguered preseason. He did say to me on Thursday that he felt like the surprise punts had helped him get things right. And, well, he was 3 for 3 on the punts. There was a little bit of a coverage bust there. but was bailed out by a penalty. But 3 for 3 on punts, dropping them inside the 20-yard line. Hang times were sufficient in terms of what you like on all 3 of them. That did the job perfectly. Like, it was like, okay, that's what you drafted him for. Could not have done him any better. So perfect. Like, you could, tip of the cap. If you were giving out game balls today, I'd say Crawshaw probably gets your special teams game ball. Not bad for a rookie going out there for the first time. I think he earned it. And someone who's been under a little bit of pressure there because they changed how they were doing things in practice to try to fix a glitch. I mean, think about, for one player changing a practice schedule to get things right, that's some pressure. And he came through. So, mazel tov to Jeremy Crawshaw. So, chat needs mods. Yeah, and when I'm doing this, I can't really moderate because it's enough to kind of do a show. Special teams gets an A even with the Mims fumble. Well, can you give it an A with what happened on the kickoff return at the end of the first half? I can't. What I want to know, and I think it wasn't asked of Sean Payton today. I was waiting to go in the locker room. I imagine it's going to come up in the conference call on Monday. What was the intent on the kickoff at the end of the first half? Was Lutz, trying to kick it inside the target area and avoid the end zone, or did he just kick it short? Did he mishit it? Because to me, in that scenario, just kick it out of the end zone. Don't give him a chance to return it there. My word. Like that was it. If they were trying to get it in the target area, to me, that was overthinking it. Especially with the limited amount of time on the clock. And to that point, Cam Ward, ever since the first possession, he was starting to struggle a bit. I did not like that. I know Surtain staying at the center of the defense pre-snap and following assignment to the perimeter after. I haven't seen this before, but love your insight. Honestly, I'd have to go back and rewatch the film a little bit more to kind of really offer some more on that. So that wasn't, I did make a couple of notes on that, but as far as like really being able to dive into it and ask him about it and really dive into what that meant, I can't really answer that right now. I have not really done a full rewatch on the game yet, so I'd say ask me about that in a future show, and hopefully I'll have a better answer on that one. So sorry about that. Defense is A+, offense is D. I'm going to say the offense moves up to a C- because of how expertly crafted the running game looked in the fourth quarter. It nudged its way out of the D range. Although D is passing, as Tommy Callahan would tell you. But I'm going to give it a C- because it is supposed to look like that. The fourth quarter in a wide zone-based ground game is supposed to be when you are really grinding down a team and when you're getting some big blows. That's what you're doing. They didn't go at PS2. Yeah, that's one thing I think you give credit to. You do give some credit to the Titans and Cam Ward and their plan. They basically decided we're not going to throw it at PS2. And most rookie quarterbacks, you can force him to throw in a direction, and they really didn't. So they figured that out. What happened? The trick plays, Mims plays Sean talked about. Yeah, on the shelf. It's almost like they were holding stuff back a little bit. Like to see the run game in all 4 quarters. Me too. Like to see it earlier. Like to see it better. Calvin Ridley dropped an easy catch. Okay. All right. Let's talk about the thing that helped the Broncos as well. The Titans are a bad football team. Now they have some interesting parts. I think as Gunnar Helm progresses, they have a chance to have two pretty good pass catching tight ends, and once that comes into play, they can become difficult to defend. I think Cam Ward long term is going to be pretty solid, at least pretty solid. Showed a lot today, I thought. I don't think they have a head coach who's going to get them where they want to go. The end of the first half, the play calling after Crawshaw pinned them back inside the 10-yard line in the last minute of the first half was some of the dumbest I've ever seen. Remember how bad it was at the end of the first half against the Chargers last year? How unusual, how messy it was, questionable, and it led to the fair catch free kick. This was 10 times worse. This was abysmal. There was at least some, the Broncos were further away. There was some, at least, rationalization for trying, perhaps, to move the ball. There was, where the Titans were at that moment, there was no rationalization for doing anything than just trying to get a couple of runs, run out the clock, and get to halftime. That was unconscionable. With a rookie quarterback in that scenario, Brian Callahan lost his mind there. If I owned that team, I think I might have fired him on the tarmac before getting on the plane to go home for that alone. That was Nathaniel Hackett level game management. Or at least I get the guy Jerry Rossberg for next week, because that was absolutely abysmal game management on his part. It actually hit me. It's hit me a couple of times. First, it hit me when I heard Vance Joseph talk about Cam Ward on Thursday, but then watching this game, after that moment, thinking about what VJ said and then seeing that, I thought to myself, VJ talking about Cam sounded like a guy who wants to coach Cam Ward someday. And after this game, it would not surprise me if VJ is the coach of the Titans at this time next year. Because if the Broncos defense plays like this going forward the rest of the way, VJ has got a very good chance to be somebody's head coach next year. And if the Titans keep struggling like this, and if they have more game management misadventures like this, Brian Callahan will not be their coach next year. Somebody else will. And who's to say it might not be VJ, and maybe taking at least one Broncos offensive assistant with him, or perhaps maybe bringing Declan Doyle over from Chicago because he's a non-play calling OC down to Nashville to call plays, because that would be considered a promotion. I mean, that's the sort of thing that you might see. I bring that up because Calvin Ridley, I mean, the drop. I mean, Tennessee's wide receivers are bad. When they showed Cam's family in the stands after Ridley dropped the pass, I'm just thinking to myself, they're saying like, "Oh man, this is not on him. This is not on our guy here. This is not on our guy." Like, yeah. Cam might have the tight ends to work with here. Gunnar Helm, I think, is really going to be good for them, the pride of Cherry Creek. And I liked him coming out. I like him even more now. But boy, oh boy, they got to get themselves some wide receivers. Like, their draft next year may be round 1 wide receiver, round 2 wide receiver. Like, they need help. They need some guys who can they need some guys who can be dynamic, get down the field, move the chains, everything. Just, that's a mess. So, I hope VJ doesn't leave, but he does. VJ deserves a real shot. And what I mean by a real shot is a place where he can really be the head coach and put his vision on a team. Because I think we all know that when he was here, it was not as much his vision as trying to execute a vision from up top, commanded on him by John Elway upstairs. I would like to see VJ get the chance to put his vision and his stamp onto a team as head coach. I believe he is going to be one of those guys who, and I believe retread is a terrible term, and it's got a terrible connotation because there are a lot of terrific coaches who did much better in their second shot than their first shot. I mean, Mike Shanahan was a retread. Bill Belichick was a retread. I'm not saying that VJ is going to be as successful as Shanahan or Belichick. What I'm saying is that first time you learn from it, you're better. I mean, hey, John Fox went to a Super Bowl in Carolina, but he was a better coach here than he was in Carolina, more successful. I mean, I think John Fox's best coaching job ever, and I saw some of his coaching jobs in Carolina out there covering him and being with the Panthers. But I think his best coaching job was right here in 2011 with the Broncos in the Tebow year. I thought he was masterful that season. Point being, I think his second shot is going to be pretty good. And I think a team's going to get a very good coach when they bring aboard Vance Joseph. So I could see VJ going to the Dolphins. And yeah, that seat, who's got a hotter seat? Brent Pry at Virginia Tech or Mike McDaniel with the Miami Dolphins? Man. Whew. Both teams looked awful this weekend. Not sure VJ will get another shot. I think he will. I think he will get another shot. It's trending in that direction. And the Sean Payton tree is starting to become a thing. Dan Campbell, Aaron Glenn. I mean, Jets didn't end up getting it done, but thought Aaron Glenn made that first game. The Jets look better than I thought they would. It's going to be a long rebuild for the Jets, but they're going to be feisty in the way that the early Lions teams for Dan Campbell were feisty in terms of laying the groundwork for where they want to go. So that's something to keep your eye on as well. Finn's team seemed pretty dysfunctional at times. Don't know if VJ would want to try and tame that. But also don't forget that Vance Joseph was there as defensive coordinator back in 2016 before he came to the Broncos. And I know that in that building up top, he's still thought of in pretty good esteem as well. So that's something to bear in mind if you get into the coaching searches in the following off season. That there's still some people in that building that like him. That they went. It wasn't a great performance for the defense, but they thought he did a pretty good job with what he had, and that was a playoff team, kind of out of nowhere. 2016, the Dolphins being a wild card playoff team, so they want to get well. I mean, right now the Finns have an offensive-minded head coach in Mike McDaniel, and that would be another thing you often see. Teams go for the opposite of what they had when they make the next hire. It's sort of an old NFL thing that you have one and you go, and then the pendulum goes back in the other direction when you go for your next coach. So anyway, so that's something. I mean, they had Flores defensive-minded, McDaniel offensive-minded. Now you tend to go in the other direction. That's sort of a weird thing. Or it's you have a disciplinarian and then you go for the players coach. Like we were sort of talking about this with Jim Harbaugh, for example, with the LA Chargers. And the thing with Jim Harbaugh we saw in San Francisco, as exceptional a coach as he is, and he is a terrific head coach. I think that's objectively true. He's never had an NFL losing season. He's 5 years as an NFL head coach. The worst he's been is 500. He's terrific. But in San Francisco, he did definitely wear out his welcome within 4 years. People were ready for him to go when he left. And you expect the same will probably happen with the Chargers at some point. Let's even say it's the same thing. It's a 4-year span for Jim Harbaugh. Let's hypothetically say it's the same length of time. So the pendulum theory would tell you that they would probably hire a more easygoing coach to replace him, because after 4 years with Jim Harbaugh, who can be a little bit high-strung, successful, again, objectively one of the very best head coaches in the sport. I mean, the AFC West has 4 terrific head coaches. Just does. In my opinion, the best quartet of head coaches in the 8-division era of NFL history. It's 2002 onward. The best quartet of coaches in history. And I think the best group of head coaches in one division since back in, I think you'd probably have to say specifically 1989. Even though the Cowboys were very bad that year, 1-15, they had Jimmy Johnson. So the Cowboys had Jimmy Johnson. Washington had Joe Gibbs, Hall of Famer. Bill Parcells with the Giants, Hall of Famer. Philadelphia had Buddy Ryan, legendary, created the 46 defense, which continues to influence tactics to this day. And the Cardinals, the then Phoenix Cardinals, had Gene Stallings. All he did was win a national championship at Alabama not long after the Cardinals fired him later that year. And frankly, with a pretty shaky Cardinals team, not very well managed by the late Bill Bidwell at the time, who was the owner, had some okay seasons, had him at the brink of the playoffs 2 years earlier when they were still in St. Louis. So that's I'd say probably the best collection of coaches in one division that I've ever seen until now here in the AFC West with Pete Carroll, Sean Payton, Jim Harbaugh, and Andy Reid. Because I think you've got 3 of them that have won the Super Bowl and the other who's been to the Super Bowl. That's, again, part of why this division is going to be some tough sledding. Somebody's going to finish last. Right now, Kansas City's in last. Keeping thing. Mace's Cavs scare Michael Myers. Oh my gosh. Jackson Dart's going to be a starter soon. Yeah. All of us. The area of the press box where I sit, I mean, just kind of, I'll tell you, like, there's some names that you might know if you follow the Broncos coverage and all that. So, like, some names in my area are Zach Stevens from DNVR, Luca Evans, and Sean Keeler of the Denver Post, and sort of we keep up a very lively conversation in that part of the press box. The consensus we had also, Chris Thomason of the Denver Gazette quite often joins in, and he's a very funny guy. Our consensus is that there will be no Russell Wilson revenge game in Denver next month. He'll be on the bench. And that was even before today, and then after today. Jackson Dart's getting in sooner rather than later. Yep, we're going to be robbed. That's it. It's too bad. This feels like an it for us. I mean, unless he wants to go play in Canada or something. I mean, could you imagine Russell Wilson quarterbacking the Hamilton Tiger Cats or something? Like, wouldn't that be crazy? Oh man, Crumble. You mentioned that the KJ Hamler meltdown, and I thought of that today. Like when things were going askew in that game, I said somebody's going to rip his helmet off and slam it like Hamler did back against the Colts in 02. That's coming. Do I think Pat Bryant will get the green light next weekend? He blocks well. It's definitely a receiving threat. Perhaps. I mean, it'd be nice to see him get a little bit more run next week simply because it's kind of it's a home, not quite a hometown, but close to it. He's from about an hour and a half away, the eastern part of Illinois. He's gonna, definitely a lot of or not part. Trent Sherfield is. He went to Illinois. My bad. It's his hometown game for Trent Sherfield, but Pat Bryant went to Illinois, not too far away, so he's gonna have plenty of friends at the game. So it would be cool to see him break out, but. Troy Franklin had some moments today as well. I mean, it's tough. It was tough. It was going to be tough, definitely tough with Devon Vele, and they're still going to be tough for him to get a huge amount of reps with the top three as they are right now. So we'll see. The Purcell meltdown. Yep, thought of that today as well because of the last time. The last time the Broncos had a 50-plus yard run was in the Purcell meltdown game at Carolina back in 2023. So. Kyler Murray going to be the same as Russ, fall off when he loses his speed. Yeah. In retrospect, because I, of course, made the case last week that George Page should get a contract extension. The thing that was underestimated back in the 2022 offseason when the Broncos got Russell Wilson, the thing that was underestimated was just how much Russ's game was going to decline when he lost his mobility. And so the point you made there about Kyler Murray is going to be very interesting as he ages, because it could happen to him, and he's also an undersized quarterback too. So that is going to be the thing. The double-barreled stop bows. Oh, man. Broncos will use Pat Bryant against the Bengals and Eagles when they need a big target. Yeah, maybe. All right, so Denver football after dark here. This was a 20-12 Broncos win over the Tennessee Titans. They'll be back to practice on Wednesday. Monday, we will hear from Sean Payton and a couple of players. Sean Payton will be on at 10:05 Mountain Time for his weekly conference call, his weekly day after the game conference call with media. It's all usually right after he's watched the film, and then there's always some interesting things that he gets from the film. It was a couple of years ago that after a similarly frustrating win when he talked about circling the parking lot in a sushi restaurant after the game. I wonder how he's going to be feeling in the wake of this, what his mood's going to be, because there were a lot of things he could be frustrated about. A lot of things. Didn't look, times it didn't look good. Didn't look as, I think the thing is, like, for an offense that has some dynamic elements, Harvey, Franklin, Mims, we only saw one of them uncorked, and that was Harvey, uncorked to a degree that you liked. Evan Engram, the short catches, I mean, that's Evan Engram we saw before the injury. That is the Evan Engram that he's become. I mean, he is a 7 to 9 yards per catch guy. That's who he is right now. Did not surprise me. So, anyway, so stay saucy. See you tomorrow. See y'all. Yeah, we'll be back here Monday night, sometime after Monday Night Football, to kind of bring week 1 in for a landing, and then turn the page to week 2 in the Indianapolis Colts here. Sean is never satisfied. People are upset because Bo, looked like a rookie quarterback. It's rough. Got to bring this up. 75. Yeah. If we were grading this on the whole, 75 is a middle C. I'd say this performance was about a C on the whole. For C minus for the offense, A for the defense. Probably a C plus for the special teams because Crawshaw was so good and the kickoff coverage was shaky. And Mims had some good returns, but he also had the muff punt. But it was a win. If you're going to have all these things happen, you want to have it with a 1 in the win column, which is more than the Broncos had last year and the year before and the year before that. So take it. Be thankful. Feel good. Move on. And let's go ahead to week number 2. There's the old 24-hour rule. I think the Broncos are best served by adhering to that. And I would say maybe in terms of celebrating the win, probably have a 12-hour rule. Don't really get to don't celebrate this one too much because I think the film session on Monday, at least on the offensive side, is going to be pretty rough. Should be. So, all right, going to wrap this up for the Sunday night, Monday morning here on Denver Football After Dark. Appreciate all of you joining me here on this show. Like, comment, share, subscribe if you enjoyed this and want more content like it. The shorter wrap is elsewhere on this channel, also on the Denver Sports Facebook. My little 8-minute stand-ups brought to you by my friends over at Matthews Fine Watches and Jewelry. I will have Orange and Blue Today on the Denver Sports YouTube channel and the social channels at 5 p.m. on Monday, so check that out. I'll be here with more Denver Football After Dark on Monday night. We'll talk a little about Monday Night Football. We'll talk a lot about what Sean Payton said in his Monday day after conference call and start looking ahead to the Indianapolis Colts and what the Broncos hope is a little more elegant performance and a performance with fewer giveaways than the 4 that they had on Sunday against the Tennessee Titans. So 1-0. That's what really matters. That's the most important thing. And then they'll get to work on fixing the mistakes. But 1-0 is better than they had the last couple of years. So appreciate you joining me here on this edition of Denver Football After Dark. So thanks for watching. Take care. And I'll see you next time.